Need someone who's actually present in my life. My name's Leo Vasquez. I'm 29, Army medic, and I was treating shrapnel wounds in a field hospital outside Kuwait City when that text came through. Sandra's words hit harder than the mortar round that shook our tent an hour earlier. 6 months into my deployment, and she's telling me she needs space. I set my phone down next to a tray of surgical instruments and went back to work. Private Johnson needed 17 stitches in his shoulder, the kind of precision work that keeps you focused when your world's falling apart. Sandra had been my fiancée for 8 months. We'd planned our wedding for when I got back stateside. I'd bought the ring with my deployment bonus money and proposed right before shipping out to Fort Campbell. The thing that bothered me wasn't the breakup text. Soldiers get Dear John letters. It's part of the job. What bothered me was the timing. Sandra knew our communication schedule. She knew I'd be in surgery rotation when she sent it, like she wanted me distracted when lives were on the line. I finished stitching Johnson and checked my phone again. 3 more messages, all variations of "I'm sorry" and "you deserve better." Then I saw the notification from Instagram. Sandra had tagged me in something. The photo showed her hand with my grandmother's engagement ring, same ring I'd saved 8 months to buy. But the hand wasn't reaching toward me. It was intertwined with fingers I didn't recognize. The caption read, "He finally asked, Marcus Williams, you made me the happiest woman alive." Marcus Williams. I'd never heard that name before. The photo was geotagged from my apartment in Nashville, the apartment I'd been paying rent on for 6 months while deployed. The apartment Sandra had keys to because I trusted her to check my mail and water my plants. I scrolled through the comments. People congratulating Sandra and Marcus. People asking about their story. Sandra's response made my blood stop moving. We've been together for 4 months. He's everything I ever wanted in a partner. 4 months. I'd been gone for 6. I walked outside the medical tent and called the apartment complex in Nashville. Property manager named Janet picked up. "Mr. Vasquez, how's the deployment going? Sandra mentioned you extended your tour." Extended my tour? I'd never spoken to Sandra about extending anything. "Janet, has Sandra been staying at my apartment?" "Oh yes, she and her boyfriend moved in about 2 weeks after you left. Nice young man. Marcus, I think. They've been very quiet tenants." The line went dead in my hand. I met Sandra 18 months earlier at a Veterans Day ceremony in Nashville. She worked for a nonprofit supporting military families. Beautiful, smart, and she understood the demands of military life. Or so I thought. We'd dated for 10 months before I proposed. Sandra knew my deployment schedule. She helped me set up automatic bill payments and gave her spare keys to check on things. My apartment meant everything to me. First place I'd owned after growing up in foster care. Every piece of furniture bought with Army pay. Every photo on the wall carefully chosen. Sandra called herself a military girlfriend. Posted photos supporting deployed troops. Shared articles about Army life on her social media. Her friends knew she was dating a soldier overseas. She wore my dog tags when we video called. But looking back, there were signs I'd ignored. 3 months into deployment, Sandra stopped answering video calls at our scheduled times. Said her work schedule changed. When we did talk, she seemed distracted. Background noise I couldn't identify. Once I heard a man's voice in her apartment and she claimed it was the television. 2 months ago, she stopped wearing my dog tags during calls. Said the chain was irritating her neck. Last month, she cut our conversation short. Said she was tired from long days at work. I'd chalked it up to deployment strain. Distance changes people. I figured we'd reconnect when I got home. My buddy Jackson had warned me about Sandra early on. Said something felt off about her social media posts. Too many photos at bars and parties for someone missing her deployed boyfriend. But I'd defended her. Told Jackson she deserved to have fun while I was gone. Now I understood what Jackson saw. I went back inside the medical tent and opened my laptop. Started scrolling through Sandra's Instagram from the beginning of my deployment. Photos told a story I'd been too trusting to see. Week 2 of my deployment. Sandra at a coffee shop with someone whose shoulder appeared in the frame. Week 4. Sandra at a restaurant with the same shoulder, this time with a hand visible wearing a college ring. Week 8. Sandra at a concert with a man's shadow clearly visible next to hers. The timeline was there. I'd just refused to see it. I opened my apartment rental agreement and checked the guest policy. Overnight visitors required written notification to management. Long-term occupancy by non-tenants violated the lease terms. If Sandra had moved someone in without permission, she'd broken our contract and my lease. I picked up my phone and called Janet again. Janet, this is Leo Vasquez. I need to request copies of all security footage from my building for the past 6 months. Is everything okay, Mr. Vasquez? Just need to check on some things. How soon can you have those ready? The security footage arrived in my email 48 hours later. Janet had been thorough. Lobby cameras, parking garage, hallway outside my apartment. 6 months of digital evidence. I watched Sandra's betrayal unfold in fast forward. 2 weeks after my deployment began, Marcus Williams appeared in the lobby carrying suitcases. Sandra met him with my spare keys. They rode the elevator to my floor together, laughing. The timestamp showed 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, middle of Sandra's workday. By week 3, Marcus had a parking space in the garage. His car, a red pickup truck, appeared daily in the spot I'd paid for. The security footage showed him coming and going like he lived there. Week 4 brought the furniture changes. Sandra and Marcus carried my recliner out to the dumpster. Same chair I'd bought after my first deployment. Next went my coffee table, my bookshelf, my framed military commendations. Everything that made the place mine. Week 6 showed them bringing in new furniture. A couch I'd never seen. A dining table Marcus had apparently picked out. Framed photos of the two of them went up on walls where my military awards used to hang. The worst part came in week 8. Security cameras caught Sandra throwing away a box marked Leo's photos. Inside were pictures of my parents, my army unit, my graduation from medical training. 29 years of memories tossed like garbage. I watched Marcus help her redecorate my apartment into their love nest. Watched them paint over the accent wall I'd spent a weekend perfecting. Watched them rearrange everything I'd worked years to afford. The final video made me set the laptop down and walk outside. Security footage from last week showed Sandra and Marcus hosting a dinner party. My dining room filled with people I'd never met. Everyone toasting their engagement with wine glasses I recognized from my kitchen cabinet. Sandra wore my grandmother's ring while serving food from my dishes to celebrate her new life with another man. I sat in the desert sand outside our base and called my bank. Checked my account balance. 6 months of rent automatically deducted while Sandra and Marcus lived in my apartment rent-free. My deployment pay funding their romantic setup. Then I called my lawyer from back home. Left a voicemail explaining the situation and asking about my options. Theft, fraud, lease violations, property damage. I needed to know exactly what laws Sandra had broken. The sun was setting over Kuwait when I made my final call. Jackson answered on the second ring. Leo, how you holding up? I need you to do something for me when I get back. Name it. Find out everything you can about Marcus Williams. Where he works, where he lives, who his friends are. I want to know his whole story before I land in Nashville. You planning something? Just gathering intelligence like they taught us. I hung up and started planning my return. Jackson's intelligence report arrived 3 days before my scheduled return. Marcus Williams, 26, worked in sales for a pharmaceutical company downtown. Bachelor's degree from Vanderbilt. No criminal record. Social media showed him as the perfect boyfriend type. Clean-cut, professional, active in his church. Most importantly, Marcus had no idea about my existence. Jackson's digging revealed the truth Sandra had been hiding. She'd told Marcus that the apartment was hers, said she'd recently gotten out of a bad relationship with a roommate who'd abandoned the lease. Marcus believed he was helping his girlfriend recover from financial hardship, not stealing from a deployed soldier. Sandra had crafted 2 separate lies, told me she needed space while telling Marcus she was free to start fresh. She'd played us both while living off my deployment pay. I had 72 hours to plan my return. First, I called Janet at the apartment complex, explained the situation and asked her to review the lease agreement. Sandra's name wasn't on any paperwork. She had no legal right to the apartment or to authorize additional occupants. Janet confirmed that housing unauthorized tenants violated multiple lease clauses. Mr. Vasquez, I had no idea. Sandra told us you'd given permission for Marcus to stay while you were deployed. Said you were close friends. Janet, I need you to prepare an eviction notice for unauthorized occupancy, but don't serve it yet. I want to handle this personally when I get back. Next, I contacted my commanding officer about emergency leave. Explained the situation without mentioning my plans for handling it. He approved early return stateside for family emergency. Then I called Sandra. She answered on the fourth ring, sounding nervous. Leo, I thought you weren't coming back for 2 more weeks. Change of plans. I'll be home Friday evening. We need to talk. About what? I thought my text was pretty clear. About Marcus Williams, about my apartment, about my grandmother's ring. Silence stretched across the international connection. Leo, I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. Friday at 7 p.m. Be there. I hung up before she could respond. The flight home felt longer than the deployment itself. 18 hours to think about confrontation strategies. I wasn't planning to yell or fight. Military training taught precision over passion. Emotional reactions led to tactical mistakes. I landed in Nashville Friday at 4 p.m. and drove straight to my apartment complex. Parked across the street where I could watch the building entrance. Marcus's red pickup truck sat in my assigned space. Lights were on in what used to be my living room. At 6:30 p.m., Marcus left the building carrying grocery bags. Looked like he was preparing dinner. Probably had no idea his girlfriend's ex-roommate was coming home tonight. I waited until Marcus returned, then walked into my own building. Used my key to enter my own apartment. The place was unrecognizable. My furniture gone, replaced with pieces I'd never seen. Photos of Sandra and Marcus covered the walls where my military commendations used to hang. Even the kitchen smelled different. Like someone else's cooking. Someone else's life. Sandra was in the bathroom when I entered. I could hear the shower running. Marcus was in the kitchen, cooking what looked like anniversary dinner. Candles on the table, wine breathing, soft music playing. I stood in the doorway, watching Marcus prepare a romantic evening in my apartment using my dishes. He had no idea he was the other man in Sandra's con game. When Sandra emerged from the bathroom wearing a dress I'd bought her last Christmas, she froze. Leo, you're early. Apparently not early enough. Marcus turned from the stove, confused. Sandra, who's this? I looked at Marcus, then at Sandra, then at the engagement ring on her finger. I'm Leo Vasquez. This is my apartment. Sandra, we need to discuss your living situation. Marcus set down his cooking spoon and stared at Sandra. Your apartment? But Sandra said this was her place. Sandra's been telling a lot of stories lately. I pulled out my phone and showed Marcus the lease agreement with my name on it. I've been paying rent on this apartment for 6 months while deployed to Kuwait. Sandra had keys to check my mail. Sandra's face went white. Leo, please, let me explain. Actually, let me explain. I turned to Marcus. 6 months ago, Sandra and I were engaged. Day after I deployed, she started dating you. Week after that, she moved you into my apartment. She's been using my deployment pay to fund your relationship. Marcus looked at Sandra, then at the ring on her finger. Sandra, is this true? It's complicated. It's fraud. I pulled out printed copies of the security footage. Janet from the apartment office was kind enough to provide video evidence. Marcus, you want to see yourself moving into my apartment 2 weeks after I left for Kuwait? I handed Marcus the timeline I'd prepared. Photos from Sandra's social media showing their relationship progression, bank statements showing my rent payments, security footage showing them disposing of my belongings. Marcus sat down hard on the couch. My couch that they'd replaced with their selection. Sandra, you told me your ex-roommate abandoned the lease. You said he was irresponsible and left you with debt. I never said he was irresponsible. You said I was helping you recover from a bad situation. You said this was your fresh start. I watched Marcus piece together Sandra's deception. His face shifted from confusion to anger to disgust. Sandra, this man is deployed overseas serving our country and you stole his apartment? I didn't steal anything. Leo gave me keys. To check mail and water plants, I said. Not to move in your boyfriend and redecorate with his money. Marcus stood up and started pacing. Sandra, where are his belongings, his furniture? We donated most of it. You threw it away. I showed Marcus the security footage of Sandra tossing boxes marked with my name, including photos of my deceased parents and my military awards. Marcus stopped pacing and stared at Sandra. You threw away a soldier's family photos? Leo, I was going to replace everything when you got back. With what money? My deployment pay that you've been spending on dates with Marcus? I pulled out bank statements showing automatic rent deductions and Sandra's credit card charges. Restaurants, shopping, entertainment. 6 months of Sandra living like a queen on my soldier's salary, while I treated wounded troops in the desert. Marcus grabbed his keys from the counter. Sandra, this is sick. This man is risking his life overseas and you're stealing from him? Marcus, wait. Let me explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to both of us for months? That you stole from a deployed soldier? Marcus headed for the door, then turned back. And this ring. This was his grandmother's ring, wasn't it? Sandra's silence confirmed everything. Give it back. Now. Marcus, please. Give him back his grandmother's ring, Sandra. You have no right to wear it. Sandra slowly removed the ring and placed it on the counter. The diamond caught the candlelight Marcus had arranged for their romantic dinner. I'm done, Marcus said. Find somewhere else to live. And don't ever contact me again. The door slammed behind him, leaving Sandra and me alone in my apartment that had become their love nest. Leo, I can fix this. No, Sandra, you can't. Sandra tried damage control for 3 hours. Promises to move out immediately. Offers to pay back money she'd spent. Desperate explanations about falling out of love during my deployment. I listened without responding. Let her talk herself deeper into the hole she'd dug. Leo, please say something. I'm thinking about criminal charges. Criminal charges for what? Theft, fraud, destruction of property, lease violations. Janet's preparing a report for the police about unauthorized occupancy. You violated federal laws regarding military housing benefits. Sandra's face crumpled. Leo, I made mistakes, but criminal charges? You stole from a deployed soldier, Sandra. You took money meant to support troops overseas and spent it on your affair. That's not a mistake. That's a felony. I pulled out the documentation I'd prepared. Photos of my destroyed belongings, financial records showing unauthorized spending, sworn statements from Jackson about Sandra's social media lies during my deployment. You have 24 hours to remove all your belongings from my apartment. After that, I'm filing theft charges. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Sandra left at midnight, promising to return with moving help. I spent the rest of the night documenting everything. Photographed the apartment's current state, inventoried missing items, calculated damages. At 8 a.m., I called the police to file a report. Detective Williams took my statement and reviewed the evidence package I'd prepared. Security footage, financial records, witness statements, documentation of destroyed property. Mr. Vasquez, this is a solid case. Federal laws protect deployed military personnel from this kind of fraud. We'll pursue full charges. My next call went to Janet at the apartment office. I want Sandra evicted for lease violations. How quickly can that happen? With this evidence, we can serve notice today. She'll have 72 hours to vacate. Then I called Sandra's employer, told them about the criminal charges and asked whether theft convictions affected employment. The human resources manager confirmed that felony charges would trigger immediate termination. My phone rang at noon, Sandra crying. Leo, the police just served me with papers and my landlord is evicting me from the apartment. You can't destroy my whole life over this. I'm not destroying anything, Sandra. I'm just telling the truth about what you did. What do you want from me? Nothing. I want nothing from you. That afternoon, Marcus called me. Leo, I owe you an apology. I had no idea Sandra was lying about everything. You didn't know. She played us both. I want to help. I recorded our conversation last night when Sandra tried to get me back. She admitted to stealing your money and lying to both of us. You want a copy for the police? Send it over. By evening, Sandra's world was collapsing. Criminal charges filed, Eviction notice served. Employer investigating theft allegations. Marcus refusing her calls. Social media posts about her situation started spreading through Nashville's military community. She called me at 9 p.m., desperate. "Leo, I'll do anything. Pay you back, replace everything, whatever you want." "Too late for that. Please, I'm losing everything." "You should have thought about consequences before you stole from a deployed soldier." I hung up and blocked her number. The next morning, Jackson called with an update. "Leo, Sandra's story is all over military wives' Facebook groups. Someone posted screenshots of her social media lies during your deployment. She's being called the worst kind of military spouse betrayal." "Good. Other soldiers need to know what she's capable of. She's trying to contact your unit claiming you're harassing her. Let her try. My commanding officer has copies of all the evidence." Everything was falling into place exactly as planned. 2 weeks after my return, Sandra's criminal trial date was set. Her lawyer requested a plea bargain, but I wasn't interested in deals. This was going to court. The day before trial, Sandra called from her parents' house in Memphis. She'd been forced to move back home after losing her job and apartment. "Leo, my lawyer says I could get 2 years in prison for military fraud charges. Please drop the charges. I'll disappear from Nashville forever." "Should have thought about prison time before you stole from deployed troops. I'm begging you. My parents are ashamed of me. My sister won't speak to me. Everyone thinks I'm a monster." "You are a monster, Sandra. You betrayed a soldier overseas and stole money meant to support troops." Trial day arrived with media attention I hadn't expected. Local news stations picked up the story about military spouse fraud. Veterans groups filled the courtroom to support my case. Sandra entered the courtroom looking broken, pale, thin, wearing clothes that didn't fit properly. Her parents sat in the back row, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. The prosecutor presented 6 months of evidence, security footage showing Sandra moving Marcus into my apartment, bank records proving theft of deployment pay, screenshots of social media posts where Sandra lied about our relationship status. Marcus testified about Sandra's deception, how she'd convinced him that I was an irresponsible ex-roommate who'd abandoned her. His recorded conversation with Sandra admitting to theft played for the entire courtroom. When Sandra took the stand, she tried to claim our relationship was already over when she started dating Marcus. The prosecutor destroyed her testimony with text messages Sandra had sent me professing love while already living with another man. The jury deliberated for 45 minutes, guilty on all charges: theft, fraud, destruction of property, violation of military protection laws. Judge Patterson sentenced Sandra to 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, and full restitution. "Miss Bennett, your actions represent the worst kind of betrayal against our military personnel. While Mr. Vasquez was treating wounded soldiers overseas, you were stealing his livelihood and destroying his property. This court finds your conduct despicable." Sandra collapsed sobbing as bailiffs led her away in handcuffs. The months following Sandra's conviction brought justice I hadn't expected. Marcus sent me restitution money to replace the belongings Sandra had destroyed, said he felt responsible for unknowingly participating in her theft. We ended up becoming friends, bonding over being victims of Sandra's manipulation. Sandra's employer terminated her and flagged her record to prevent future hiring in nonprofit work. Her reputation in Nashville social circles was permanently destroyed. Military community groups shared her story as a warning about spouse fraud during deployments. Her parents disowned Sandra after learning the full extent of her betrayal. Her sister changed her last name to avoid association with the family scandal. Sandra became infamous in military communities as an example of the worst kind of spouse betrayal. Prison destroyed whatever remained of Sandra's social standing. She was housed with women who despised her for targeting deployed soldiers. Veterans groups monitored her parole proceedings to ensure maximum sentence completion. After release, Sandra was unable to find employment in Tennessee. Her criminal record prevented work in nonprofit, healthcare, or education fields. She moved to Oregon, using her mother's maiden name, trying to escape her reputation. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my life with precision and purpose. New furniture bought with restitution money, military awards replaced and properly displayed, My apartment became mine again, filled with memories worth keeping. I met Jessica 6 months later at a Veterans Day ceremony, a nurse who understood military life without trying to exploit it, someone who saw deployment as service, not opportunity. When I told Jessica about Sandra's betrayal, she said, "Good thing you're the type of man who fights back." I nodded, thinking about Sandra serving hard time while I moved forward with my life. Some battles are won through patience, preparation, and letting justice work exactly as designed.